to What You Need to Know with Carla Pileggi Caviola. Today on our show, we will be talking about postpartum depression prevention with our special guest and expert, Dr. Jill Zechowy.
Good
Dr. Jill
morning.
Zechowy, it's so good to meet you. Good morning.
Great to meet you, Carla. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on. That's an honor. Um, just so everybody knows, Dr. Jill Zechowy is a perinatal psychotherapist and a family physician and a mom of two. In her practice, Dr. Zechowy combines her knowledge of psychology, medicine, and parenting to help pregnant women and mothers thrive. Again, it is a true honor to have you on today, Dr. Zechowy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and you're welcome to call me Jill. That is fine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So, Jill, tell me a little bit about your story. I'm very curious. I know, on a personal level, educational background, I know it sounds like there's been a bit of changes and
hmm
with your own story. So, tell us a little bit about that, including how you got into this line of work as first a family physician and later in the field of counseling psychology.
Yeah, it was not a straight path. So as a kid, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. That was my goal. I thought cardiologist, something like that. And then when I went to medical school, they had this program where you could volunteer to be assigned to a woman who was pregnant and early in her pregnancy. And then you would follow her to each of her prenatal care visits throughout the remaining months. And then they gave you a beeper. This was some time ago. So I had a
Sure.
beeper for her pager. And when she went into labor, I got to go there and deliver her baby and
Wow.
then follow and go to the well child visits and her postpartum visits. So I was paired with this family doctor who showed me what it was like to be a family doctor, that you were with working with families through their pregnancy,
Yes.
delivering their babies, and then there for the postpartum care, and then taking care of the child. I got to see him become a toddler before I left medical school, and I was like a friendly face to her at each of her visits. And this woman was so kind and generous to let me, who'd never delivered a baby before, at that point, it was my first year of medical school, deliver her baby and be there for this really important moment in her life. And that just hooked me. I was like, family medicine, that is for me. So then I went through residency and struggled to become pregnant myself. And so it took over 3 years to get
Hmm.
pregnant. And when I did get pregnant, my husband had finished his training in medicine, and we moved all the way across the country from Boston out to Northern California. And I was 8 months
Beautiful.
pregnant. Yeah, it was. I was so excited. However, I didn't know a soul.
That's
I
right.
had no family in town, no friends, and I
Yeah.
was really like, I felt like I knew how to take care of a baby. I delivered quite a few at that point. I knew what
Sure.
birth was going to be like and what I wanted and didn't want. And I figured I knew how to take care of a newborn, but I thought maybe there's more to it than that. So thank thankfully I arranged to have. I asked a cousin if she could come out and help me, and my husband's sister also came out and was with me during the last few weeks of my pregnancy and for birth. My mother passed away when I was 18, so I
Oh,
did
I'm
not
sorry.
have that support.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but my cousin from England came out and she stayed with me for over a month,
Wow.
and she was amazing. She was the oldest of seven, so she
Oh,
knew
wow.
what she was doing, and she's
Sure.
also a personal trainer person. So
Oh, how fun.
I would be in bed, ragged from the night of feeding and up all night, and she'd come up, let's get going, and get me out of the house and
Oh,
um,
wow.
and exercising and she was a lifesaver. And
Sure.
I had had depression as a child, and I knew my mother had postpartum depression after
Okay.
each of, um, after having me and my brother. And
Sure.
then plus infertility and all these life changes, I knew I was at really high risk of having
Mm.
postpartum depression. So my cousin's support made a huge difference. Uh, I was still, I would
Awesome.
say, I was pretty depleted. I had
Hmm.
significant postpartum depletion where I was exhausted. I
Yes.
remember thinking, why do I even bother wearing a shirt? I'm just breastfeeding all day long. Like, why? What's the point?
That's
I don't
right.
leave the house when my cousin wasn't there, you know. Just exhausted. My husband was working crazy long hours, so he was just not
Not
able to help.
available.
Mm-mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, no. And then I began working, and it, it really hit me how poorly we prepare women for motherhood. We do a birth class, and maybe they teach you about that first latch and how to change a diaper a little bit more, but like it's almost all about the birth. And the moment you
Right.
have the baby, you're like, well, now what?
Hmm.
And um, I was really shocked at how little preparation I had for the rest of it. And
Yeah.
so that was in the back of my mind. And in my work in family medicine, I saw so many people struggle postpartum or have trouble bonding with their kids and things.
Mhm.
And after I had my second, I had postpartum anxiety,
Mhm.
where I just felt like my anxiety was so in my body. I just felt like this guitar string that had been plucked that was just reverberating all the time.
Mhm. Just
And
kind of agitated, maybe.
oh yeah, it
Yeah.
was just like I couldn't quiet, you know, I
Yeah.
couldn't calm. And I realized I need to really my real passion is starting families out better. I had a lot of tools, a lot of information, but I didn't have what I really needed. And so I went back, got my master's in counseling psychology, did a lot of training in working with moms who just had a baby. We called it dyad therapy, where
That's
mom
right.
and baby come to visits and helping them with postpartum depression or anxiety, or some moms just like, I'm not bonded. This baby feels like a thing to me. And, um, and that may sound horrible, but these women were tortured with that. They
Yeah.
felt such tremendous guilt.
Guilt. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
So being
I,
able to help that attachment, right? It was so
yeah,
important. Yeah.
absolutely. Because everyone who becomes a mom wants to be a good mom. And when you aren't attached, it's really hard to feel like you're a good mom, even if you're
That's right.
providing wonderful care. And plus, the reward isn't in it, but it's very fixable. So, um, 15 years ago, I opened up my practice in just women's mental health. And my favorite thing is to work with moms as they transition to motherhood. And many of my clients have had postpartum depression 2 times before. And so they come to see me for the
Yeah.
first time in their third pregnancy, and they want this time to be better, this time to be
Yes.
different. And I love it. It's really rewarding work because you can see change happen so quickly.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. That's an amazing story, and definitely some heartbreak in there too. I know you said you
Mm-hmm.
lost your mom at a young age, at 18,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm sorry to hear about that. And then certainly, the work as a family physician sounds so amazing, right? It's so well rounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're able to
Mm-hmm.
work with, even as you were in medical school, working with pregnant patients already, following them throughout their
Mm-hmm.
appointments and at the birth and postpartum, then being able to treat their, newborn infants slash toddlers as they grow up. So
Mhm.
it's just very, I love that it's like a whole full spectrum type of a
Mhm.
intervention
Mhm.
as a family physician, but then also saying, you know what, there's something that maybe I need to add to this, which
So
was the counseling psychology, really helping them
yeah.
to prepare better, like you said, for motherhood, or even do preventative work, right? Right. If there's a mom that maybe has had postpartum depression or maybe is at high risk for postpartum depression, to be able to already work with them to prevent that or diminish symptoms is really amazing, right? And it's
Yeah.
so needed.
It really is. We know from studies that up to 50% of postpartum depression can be prevented through specific interventions. So it really makes a difference. So my family medicine, although I don't practice as a family medicine doctor anymore, that
Yes.
background just really is so helpful in normalizing what women are feeling or understanding when medical intervention might be needed, or what they're going through if they're having a medically complicated pregnancy or complicated delivery. Sometimes I'll go through a woman's chart when she's trying to make sense. What happened in my birth? Things just felt out of control, and
Mm-hmm.
it was traumatic to her. And we'll go
Sure.
through the chart, and I'll be able to picture what was happening based
Mm-hmm.
upon the medical records and explain things and help her understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that
That
can be
must be
very
so
grounding.
helpful for your patients, right? Or your clients, and being able to have that understanding. Because sometimes when you are having a baby, right, even just thinking about birth, vaginal or C section, all these different spectrum of possibilities that can arise.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's so we don't necessarily know what's going on, or maybe we've
Right.
had like a little bit of a basic training, like you said, right? The pre-birthing class, which are
Mm-hmm.
great. Those are great. But then
Mm-hmm.
it's like in the moment you have to make snap decisions sometimes, or you're in situations where, it could be, we need to make an emergency C-section right now, right? And so
Right.
being able to go back and process that with your clients must be very healing.
It a lot of times women's experience, like, because they don't know what's going on, they sense the urgency in the air, and they
Yes.
had a vision of what was going to happen, and
Hmm.
that vision doesn't always go to plan, that they can think their life is been threatened, or their baby's life was threatened, when from a medical experience perspective, sometimes you can see, oh no, this is very standard and very commonly done things. I can understand why it was terrifying, and I'm really
Sure.
sorry that a doctor didn't come and say, hey, we got this. This is what's
Yeah.
happening. This is where we're going to go. We can talk more later, but we need to get your baby out safely, and that's what we're about to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I wish those pauses happen more often. But sometimes people, they're like, I know what I need to do. Let's go do it. And they forget
Yes.
that there might be a mom who's terrified in that moment.
Yeah, and even the
Yeah.
partner or spouse, right? It could be
Mm-hmm.
traumatic for them as
Absolutely.
well. And so
Absolutely.
you're right. Even in very difficult situations or traumatic, what maybe the patients appear to feel is a traumatic, situation or
Mm-hmm.
experience, just having that feeling supported by your
Mm-hmm.
providers can make such a huge positive difference in
Right.
the outcome,
Right.
even
Right.
in very difficult or maybe traumatic situations. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. And
So
sometimes they are just a traumatic, like a very scary delivery for everyone
yeah,
involved.
yeah,
But processing it can make a big,
yeah,
big
yeah,
difference.
yeah. So it's when you're talking, Jill, I just feel like it's kind of, I know we talk about it in this type of field, right? Perinatal mental health, but it's like we're holding, right? We're holding
Yeah.
the moms, we're holding our
Hmm.
clients or the patients. I know you also integrate, right, as a perinatal mental health physician.
Mhm.
So we're really holding them through what is very much a very delicate time in life and a major life
Yeah.
transition.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge. Your life is no longer your own once that baby comes in. It's,
Oh, yes.
your entire day and night are abruptly changed. You can do it and you can do it well,
Yes.
and you're going to struggle like everybody. Um, but it's a huge change. And so having support, having a perinatal therapist, especially if you've had a history of depression, whether it was postpartum depression or any depression, I just
Yes.
highly recommend people connect with someone like yourself or myself to just be there and support and help things go in the right direction
Yeah.
and normalize what needs to be normalized, or problem solve certain areas that might be going quite difficult, whether it's
That's right.
breastfeeding or getting enough sleep, different techniques. It's important to have that help.
Absolutely. And like you said, even decrease, outcomes of maybe postpartum depression in this case scenario. Now, I know we're
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
focused more on postpartum depression today in this conversation.
Hmm.
So, absolutely, there's not just, intervention when people are in crisis, but really the preventative piece, which is again so
Right.
important. And
Yeah.
that's what we're aiming towards, really.
Yeah. I'd
Um,
really like to see more of these techniques that have been studied be put into birth classes and have
yes,
it be a much more comprehensive prenatal class, because there's so much that can be done if you just have a little more information.
absolutely. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Too many people are caught off guard, and that's kind of like a deer in headlights. Like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Right? And they
yeah,
don't maybe realize, like, whether it's postpartum depression or any other emotional complication that can arise, right, during this time period. It can be kind of scary or
hmm,
confusing, and then what do I do in this situation, who can help me, right?
yeah,
Or maybe you're so
yeah,
exhausted that you don't even have the time or energy to find someone to help you, right? And
hmm,
so this is why this whole prevention is so important and needed. um,
exactly.
so Jill, tell me a little bit. I mean, this is so valuable information today, and this is really, really, again, so important and can be life saving, really. Tell me about just your specific, your practice in Santa
Hmm.
Rosa, California,
Hmm.
Women's Mental Health MD. Tell us about the spectrum of your work there and who you serve in Santa Rosa, California.
Hmm. So, about half of my clients are from the local area, and then the other half are throughout the state of California. As a physician, I'm just licensed to practice in California.
Yes.
So, I do telemedicine visits as well. So, I have clients as far as, I think San Diego is the most south that I see.
Excellent.
Um, and I have some people that I've worked with since their first postpartum depression, and here, like 14 years later, I'm just almost like a coach in helping them sound out their life, and they're just
Yeah.
thriving. And then I have the OBs in town will refer to me, people that have postpartum depression. I'm trying to get them to be a little more proactive,
Yes.
and recognize that quite a bit of postpartum depression begins in pregnancy. And there was a big push to try and get it changed to perinatal depression, but then people know the term postpartum depression. So we just want the word out so that people go, oh,
Yeah.
maybe this isn't me. I'm not a bad mom. I might have some depression making everything so difficult, because it really does just sap you of energy, make you second guess everything you're doing. All
Yeah.
those countless decisions of, should I wake my baby now? Should I let them sleep? Should I be adding formula? All those decisions. And then while you're pondering all of that, feel guilty about it. So that's a big chunk of my clients. But then I have a few women that are in their 80s. And I kind of like having a few just to recognize this is the circle of life, and like that there are different ages and stages that we go through, and how to make it fulfilling at every point is my main goal. And make life, you get one chance to go through it. We might as well make it as good and as fulfilling and as filled as possible. Unless you want it quiet and calm, then let's make that our aim. Everybody's a little different.
Aw. I love that though. It's you really are working with, again, this your passion and helping people with, obviously prevention, postpartum depression, preventing that, again, that being from like once you deliver the baby through the first year of life, unless you're breastfeeding longer, right? It can be extended, that period, right? What we call postpartum depression, and understanding that you're right. There's a difference between that and regular depression because it affects your identity as a mom, right? Or the parent,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So postpartum depression can affect people in that way. But then you're also able to work with people as they go through other stages in life, all the way up to in their 80s, which is, again, that's a whole other stage, right?
It is. It is.
But it's beautiful that you're able to, just kind of like a family physician working through like these seasons of life, if you will. Now you're able to kind of do that with your own clients in your practice. That's
I really
wonderful.
love it. It informs the way I live my own life and make my own choices. And I work with such awesome women who have accomplished so many things, whether it is just making a happy family and or taking care of a child with significant medical complications, or working at a Fortune 500 company and able to create balance so that they feel like they are, they are really great moms while doing this massive job. And they're all different challenges.
Yes.
And so I really like entering each person's world and helping them, as I'm sure you do as well in your work.
Yeah. Well, it's always, as we come alongside people, it's always an honor, right? And we learn so much, but it's just amazing to be able to provide that support as they walk through life in
Yeah.
different seasons. But I love hearing I love hearing what you're doing, and you're doing amazing work.
Thank
You're
you.
doing
Thank you
amazing
very
work.
much.
So tell me a little bit, Jill. I know you mentioned one statistic, but any other research that you wanted to share really quick in regards to kind of what you feel would be helpful as we look at preventing postpartum depression, and then obviously what you've also seen in your clinical experience?
So there are a bunch of studies that all come out in about the last 15 years showing that different interventions for women or for couples can reduce the risk of postpartum depression. And they're all different. There's studies on the East Coast in New York, and Northwestern is doing some, George Washington University, UCSF. They each have kind of different approaches, and they're seeing a lot of positive benefit. And it really needs to be opened up to all women so that all women can have this preventative work, because we know that perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, along as substance use, is the number one cause of maternal mortality in the year postpartum. So it isn't bleeding and other things we worry about. It's wellness. And so that's a hard statistic that we just learned when they began studying for the first time mortality in
Yeah.
women due to perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. But we really need to make an active difference here. And so, as we see these approaches studied more, and in my book, I put out what you can do, creating a circle of support before your baby is born. Um, who would you want to talk to about if breastfeeding isn't going well, or if you're thinking of switching to bottle, or you're having like cramps or bleeding, or like your baby's acting like this, and is this okay? Who is your crew that
Yes.
are experienced moms that you trust with this information, and then who can help also reduce your isolation, because it can be really lonely at
Oh,
home with the
yes.
baby.
Yeah.
So, and then getting your partner on board. If you have a partner, what you need to talk to with them and what information they need to know, and what needs to be shifted as far as household duties before the baby comes. So in my book, I have a whole chapter for partners, preparing them, because it shouldn't only be the moms preparing for the baby. This
Yes.
is a whole household change.
That's
And
right.
dads get postpartum depression too, 1 in 10,
That's right.
almost as many as women. So it's not all hormonal.
Yeah.
A lot is what we do. And then other techniques and interventions that research is showing make a big difference is sleep,
Yes.
how to get more sleep. So I have lots of techniques of how to divide the night up with your partner, the 5 and 5 method,
Mm-hmm.
and doing dream feeds and different techniques. So it won't magically make your baby sleep through the night, but you might be able to get 5 hours of sleep in a row. And that is huge.
Yeah.
And the research shows 5 hours of sleep in a row is far better than 8 interrupted, as far as how rested you feel the next day, your ability to concentrate and focus. So this information allows you to just make little shifts so that it just goes smoother and better postpartum.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, this is all very important information. I was just actually that was my next question, but you beat me to it. I was
Mm-hmm.
going to ask you about your book, Motherhood
Mm-hmm.
Survival Manual, your prenatal guide to prevent postpartum depression and anxiety. So
Mm-hmm.
this book is available, and it's a practical book, correct? So they can
Right.
really work through this, whether it's on their own or with their significant other, and really make preparations even before baby is, born at this point, right?
Exactly. Ideally, you start before your baby's born, because no one has time to read a book after the baby's born.
That's
You're
right.
exhausted,
I
and you
don't know how
kind of
some
need to
women do
know
that, but
this. Yeah, I don't
that's
know.
always a
Uh,
question to me.
yeah, so really, and that's a big part of this, is do the preparation before
Yeah.
your baby's born, so that you know day one, what to expect, and how to handle, and things like second night syndrome, where your baby's really hungry and your milk hasn't come down, how to handle that so
Yeah.
that it doesn't derail breastfeeding or leave you with nipple blisters. So I have my book right here. That is what it looks like. It
Perfect.
doesn't come with that. And there's my name. It is on Amazon, but it goes on to each different scenario that I've seen trigger postpartum depression in
Yeah.
women, whether it's lactation difficulties, or ways of thinking, cognitive behavioral techniques
Yeah.
for certain challenges that I see over and over. So you have some more tools, how to handle colic, how to get those conversations with your partner, because you each feel like you're doing more than 100%.
Hmm.
And so how to talk together in a way that's constructive and will decrease conflict and make you feel like you're on the same team, rather than, it's your turn with the
Fighting.
baby. You get.
Right. I did more than you. No, but I did this. No, but I did that. Right? We don't want to get into those.
Exactly. No, no. And you're both going to lose it at some point, and that's okay. And then
Yeah.
how to heal and, how to,
Yes.
give yourself grace. It's really
Yes.
important.
So important. Yeah. The
Hmm.
communication, the collaboration with your partner, right? Or spouse, being
Right.
able to problem solve. There's always, some sort of situations that arise that we can't always predict, but like having
Hmm.
those tools can be so helpful in advance,
Exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
this is why I tell everyone, I'm like, if you want to get married, make sure you do premarital counseling,
Hmm.
right? Because it's like
Hmm.
when you do that, and that's a great analogy here, right? Is you are giving yourself the tools. You're learning how you communicate, or your significant other might communicate, and you know, um, coping strategies or whatever it might be, right? So you're
Right.
learning that in advance. So when you hit those speed bumps in your marriage, you have some tools
Hmm.
you can pull out, right? Because
Hmm.
no relationship is just
Right.
relationships don't magically happen,
No.
right? They take
Right.
work. And this
They
is a
do.
huge new relationship in the family dynamic, right? And so to be better prepared is really, it just makes 100% sense for people to do
Absolutely.
this before the baby arrives.
I
Not
have
be
moms
focused.
create. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, not just be focused on the baby nursery or whatever
Mm.
it is, right?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the fun part.
Yes,
And it is good to get it organized and maybe have like different feeding stations or nursing places where you have a drink and music and whatever you need for self-care right there. But
sure.
much more preparing the relationship. And I have women create what I call your survival plan for pregnancy and your
Yes,
survival plan for postpartum, so that you are comprehensively addressing each aspect so that you can do your best to reduce your risk of having
absolutely.
struggles and
Absolutely.
still enjoying your partner through this process.
Yes, absolutely. So this
Mhm.
book is obviously like a very helpful tool, which, obviously at some point, if people needed more support, that's where you
Hmm.
would maybe get the psychotherapy, right? The
Yeah,
counseling and being able to really have somebody help you navigate that through that, right?
exactly.
If you have
Hmm.
postpartum depression, or whether maybe it's marital issues or whatever it could be, right?
Hmm.
Um, but this sounds like a really great book that could be beneficial for everyone going through this,
Thank you. Yeah.
season of childbirthing, right?
Hmm.
Whether
Hmm.
it's
And
one or more, even, right? Because every time it could be different too.
yeah, this book has information that uh, you wouldn't necessarily know even if you've had several babies. It's just a different way of doing things, and it gives you the freedom to choose what's right for you, not really a one size fits all. And for women who don't want to read a book, they're not big book readers, I also have an online course that teaches the same material.
Excellent. That's wonderful.
Mhm.
So again, for everybody listening, that's the Motherhood Survival Manual, your prenatal guide to prevent postpartum depression and anxiety, in book format or in a course format.
Mhm.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. So, I know, Joel, just before we kind of wrap up in a few minutes, are there any important tips that you kind of want to maybe leave any viewers today, anybody that might be struggling with or wanting to prevent
Mhm.
postpartum depression today,
Mhm.
or maybe they have a family or friend that might be fearful, concerned about developing postpartum depression? Any kind of final tips you'd like to leave with them?
Mhm. There's so many ways we can make a difference. So certainly, if this is a big fear, um, connecting with a perinatal mental health therapist can make a big difference. Um, Learning how to ask for what you want, um, and then also sleep, focusing on how to get sleep. There's so many techniques. But probably the most comprehensive of all is to just build that circle of support, reach out and make connections with other moms, whether that's through a birth class, through your friends, through your church or synagogue or temple, through a yoga class, meeting other moms so that you aren't alone, because that's going to be your best sounding board for good ideas, or, hey, or have you also had the same struggle? It's just so normalizing and validating, and all the resources. When we put different people together, you learn about all the resources in your community. And so then you're a mom in the know. So, most important is to really create your circle of support.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. So having the right supports in place can make a huge difference. And then if they needed a post perinatal mental health professional or specialist, I mean, you're able to treat people in California.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm over here on the East Coast, Connecticut, New York, but if not,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely Postpartum Support International is a great resource, and there's
Absolutely.
people not just in the US, Canada, but throughout various countries internationally, which is amazing. So that's a great resource for anybody that might need to find local support or within their state or region.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So if anybody would like to reach out to you, Jill, all right, about your services as a perinatal mental health physician, author, and speaker, what are the best ways to be in touch with you?
Probably the easiest is through my website, motherhoodsurvivalmanual.com. That has links to my private practice, which has my phone number on it. It also has the connections to the course and to the book and other podcasts.
Amazing. Amazing. Wow. Well, I appreciate you taking time to be on the show today.
Mhm.
You've left us with a lot of wonderful information, a lot of really important golden nuggets, as I like to call them, for our viewers to think about
Mhm.
today. So, again, I really appreciate you, Dr. Jill Zechowy. Um, make sure you get a copy of her book. And thank you for sharing your expertise and clarity today about your amazing work as a perinatal mental health physician, author, and speaker.
Well, thank you,
Again,
Carla.
oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. If you would like to be in touch with Dr. Jill Zechowy again, you can contact her at motherhoodsurvivalmanual.com. And if you have found this time to be educational, empowering, and insightful to your health and well being, please click on the button below to submit to my channel. Also, please feel free to share this amazing episode with your friends and family or anyone you think would benefit from postpartum depression prevention today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to sharing what you need to know next time. Take care and be well. Okay. Okay.